Welcome to Midnight and Murder Crime Stories. Perfect for late hours, heavy eyelids, and the space between wake and sleep. Dim the lights, let the quiet take hold, and let the stories carry you. Let's go. Story 1, The Vanishing at Blackthorn Manor. In the quaint village of Blackthorn Hollow, nestled between rolling hills and dense woods, life moved at a leisurely pace. It was the kind of place where everyone knew their neighbors, secrets were few, and crime was practically non-existent. That all changed on a cold November morning in 1974 when the wealthy and enigmatic Eleanor Blackthorn vanished without a trace from her ancestral estate. Eleanor had been hosting an intimate dinner party the night before, inviting only her closest friends and family to celebrate her recent inheritance of Blackthorn Manor. The guests included her younger brother Charles, his wife Margaret, their daughter Sophia, and two longtime acquaintances, a local businessman named Richard Greaves and a reclusive artist known simply as Madame Isabel. By all accounts, the evening had gone smoothly. Guests described Eleanor as radiant, laughing freely and basking in the warmth of companionship. Yet by morning she was gone. When house staff arrived to prepare breakfast, they found Eleanor's bedroom untouched, her bed unslept in. A quick search of the grounds revealed no sign of struggle or forced entry. Her car remained parked in the driveway, keys still hanging neatly by the front door. Even stranger, her coat, a heavy fur-lined garment essential for the biting autumn chill, was left behind in the foyer. It was as if Eleanor had stepped outside into the frosty air, wearing nothing but her silk gown, and disappeared into thin air. Detective Inspector Harold Finch, a seasoned investigator with decades of experience, was called in to lead the case. Finch was known for his meticulous attention to detail and his ability to unravel even the most perplexing mysteries. As he surveyed the manor, he couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister lurked beneath its grand facade. The Blackthorns were an old family, steeped in both wealth and scandal. Whispers of betrayal, greed, and forbidden love had swirled around them for generations. Could Eleanor's disappearance be tied to this tangled history? Finch began by interviewing the household staff. The butler, Mr. Hargrove, recalled hearing raised voices coming from Eleanor's study late in the evening. When questioned further, he admitted overhearing fragments of an argument involving Eleanor and her brother Charles. "I didn't mean to eavesdrop," Hargrove stammered, "but I heard Miss Eleanor say something about cutting ties and no more secrets." This revelation piqued Finch's interest, prompting him to dig deeper into the family dynamics. The sprawling estate itself seemed to hold its own secrets. Built in the early 1800s, Blackthorn Manor boasted towering spires, hidden passageways, and an ancient stone tower perched precariously on the edge of the property. Locals whispered tales of ghostly apparitions wandering the halls and cursed artifacts buried within the walls. Finch dismissed these superstitions as mere folklore, but couldn't deny the eerie atmosphere that clung to the manor like a second skin. Finch began his investigation by interviewing the dinner party attendees. Each guest provided a seemingly plausible account of the evening, yet inconsistencies began to emerge upon closer examination. Charles Blackthorn, Eleanor's brother, claimed he retired early due to a headache, leaving the gathering shortly after dessert. However, a servant recalled seeing him pacing anxiously near the study around midnight. When questioned further, Charles admitted to arguing with Eleanor over finances, though he insisted it was a minor disagreement. His wife, Margaret, corroborated his story, but seemed unusually nervous, fidgeting with her hands and avoiding eye contact during questioning. Richard Greaves, the businessman, presented himself as charming and cooperative. He spoke fondly of Eleanor, describing her as a beacon of grace and intelligence. Yet Finch discovered that Richard had recently suffered significant financial losses and may have been seeking loans from the Blackthorn estate. Records showed multiple meetings between Richard and Eleanor in the weeks leading up to her disappearance, raising suspicions about his motives. Madame Isabel, the artist, proved to be the most elusive witness. Known for her eccentricities and reclusive nature, she refused to answer questions directly, instead offering cryptic remarks about shadows moving within the walls and the weight of guilt. Finch noted that she carried a sketchbook filled with haunting images of Blackthorn Manor, including one depicting a woman falling from a tower window. Though unsettling, these drawings offered little concrete evidence. As Finch delved deeper, he uncovered fragments of Eleanor's personal life that painted a complex picture. Letters hidden in her desk revealed a strained relationship with her brother, who resented her control over the family fortune. There were also hints of a secret romance with someone outside the social circle, a detail Eleanor had kept carefully concealed. One letter addressed to an unnamed recipient ended with the chilling line, "If anything happens to me, look to the tower." Finch decided to explore the possibility of a romantic entanglement. He interviewed locals and dug through town records, eventually uncovering correspondence between Eleanor and a man named Jonathan Hayes, a sailor who frequented the nearby port. Their letters spoke of passionate encounters and plans to run away together. However, the final letter hinted at trouble. "They know about us," Eleanor wrote. "We must be careful." Could Jonathan Hayes have played a role in Eleanor's disappearance? Finch tracked him down to a seedy tavern on the outskirts of town. Hayes appeared startled when questioned, but denied any involvement. "I loved her," he said, his voice trembling. "But she told me to stay away, to protect myself. I haven't seen her since the day she inherited the manor." Following this clue, Finch turned his attention to the ancient stone tower standing at the edge of the property. Long abandoned and rumored to be haunted, the structure had been sealed off years earlier after a tragic accident claimed the life of Eleanor's great-grandmother. Locals whispered that the tower was cursed, a place where misfortune befell anyone who dared enter. Against the protests of the household staff, Finch forced open the rusted iron door and ascended the spiral staircase. Inside, he found layers of dust and cobwebs, along with faint scuff marks suggesting recent activity. At the top of the tower, a narrow window overlooked the surrounding countryside. Beneath it lay a pile of crumpled fabric, a fragment of Eleanor's gown. Further inspection revealed a hidden compartment in the floorboards containing a bundle of documents. Among them were letters detailing a blackmail scheme orchestrated by Richard Greaves, threatening to expose Eleanor's illicit affair unless she agreed to fund his failing business ventures. There was also a journal entry written in Eleanor's handwriting, dated the night of her disappearance. In it, she expressed fear for her safety, writing, "I can feel eyes watching me, even here in my own home. If I don't make it through tonight, know that I trusted no one, not even those closest to me." The final piece of the puzzle came when Finch reviewed security footage from cameras installed discreetly around the estate. Though grainy, the tapes captured a figure slipping out of the tower just before dawn. Closer analysis identified the person as Madame Isabel. Confronted with the evidence, she confessed to witnessing Eleanor's fall from the tower but denied involvement. According to her, Eleanor had stumbled backward while trying to escape an unseen assailant. Overcome with panic, Isabel fled the scene rather than report what she'd seen. Though the truth of Eleanor's fate remained shrouded in mystery, Finch pieced together enough to charge Richard Greaves with attempted extortion. Whether Eleanor fell accidentally, jumped in despair, or was pushed remains unanswered, a question forever etched into the shadowy corridors of Blackthorn Manor. To ensure closure for the community, Finch organized a memorial service at the manor, inviting villagers to share their memories of Eleanor. As candles flickered in the drafty halls, whispers of forgiveness and regret echoed through the rooms. Some believed Eleanor had sought freedom from her gilded cage. Others thought darker forces had claimed her soul. Whatever the truth, Blackthorn Manor would never be the same again. Story 2. The Midnight Syndicate. In the bustling city of New Haven, a string of audacious robberies gripped residents with fear. Between 1955 and 1960, a group known only as the Midnight Syndicate orchestrated a series of heists targeting high-profile banks, jewelry stores, and private estates. What set them apart from ordinary criminals was their methodical precision and uncanny ability to evade capture. They struck under cover of darkness, leaving behind minimal evidence and always managing to slip away undetected. Detective Sarah Klein, newly promoted to head of the Criminal Investigations Division, took charge of the case. With sharp instincts and relentless determination, she vowed to bring the syndicate to justice. Her first task was to identify patterns linking the crimes. Each robbery shared common characteristics: timing, always between midnight and 2 a.m., meticulous planning, and a preference for locations with advanced security systems. The thieves seemed to anticipate every move law enforcement might make, staying one step ahead at every turn. Rumors circulated that the Midnight Syndicate wasn't just a gang of petty criminals, but a highly organized network with ties to powerful figures in the underworld. Some speculated that they operated under the protection of corrupt officials, using bribes and intimidation to ensure silence. Others believed they possessed insider knowledge, perhaps gained through moles planted within law enforcement or private security firms. Klein began by reviewing old case files, searching for overlooked clues. She noticed that each crime scene bore a peculiar mark, a serpent coiled around a clock face, etched discreetly into walls or furniture. Research revealed that the emblem belonged to a defunct organization called the Order of Eternal Time, rumored to have dabbled in everything from espionage to occult practices. Digging deeper, Klein uncovered connections between members of the Order and key individuals implicated in the robberies. One name stood out: Victor Kane, a former locksmith turned mastermind thief. Known for his unparalleled skill in bypassing locks and safes, Kane had served time in prison before disappearing from public records entirely. Witnesses placed him at several of the crime scenes, though never close enough to confirm his direct involvement. Klein theorized that Kane acted as the syndicate's strategist, devising plans so intricate that even seasoned detectives struggled to decipher them. Her suspicions deepened when she intercepted handwritten notes exchanged between suspected accomplices. Using a cipher, Klein decoded the messages, revealing detailed instructions for upcoming operations. Armed with this information, she coordinated a sting operation aimed at catching the syndicate red-handed during their next heist. Klein's breakthrough came when she deciphered a series of cryptic notes found at one of the crime scenes. The messages were written in a substitution cipher, where symbols replaced letters. Though rudimentary by modern standards, the cipher was cleverly disguised within seemingly random doodles and patterns. Klein spent hours painstakingly decoding the text, eventually revealing detailed plans for an upcoming robbery. The decoded message outlined not only the target, a heavily guarded jewelry store, but also the exact timing and method of entry. It described how the thieves intended to disable alarms using a combination of tools and insider knowledge. Klein realized that someone within the security team must have been feeding information to the syndicate. This realization sent her back to square one, poring over personnel records and conducting discreet interviews. Her investigation led her to a man named Henry Aldridge, a former security consultant who had worked with several of the targeted establishments. Aldridge had abruptly retired years earlier, citing health issues, but neighbors reported seeing him frequently visiting seedy bars and gambling dens. When questioned, Aldridge denied any involvement but appeared visibly shaken. Further digging revealed that he had accrued massive debts due to his gambling addiction, making him a prime candidate for coercion. Meanwhile, Klein continued piecing together profiles of the syndicate members. In addition to Victor Kane and Henry Aldridge, she identified a third key player: Lila Monroe, a seductive con artist known for infiltrating high society events under various aliases. Lila specialized in gathering intelligence, charming her way into exclusive gatherings and extracting valuable information from unsuspecting targets. Her role in the syndicate suggested a level of sophistication far beyond typical criminal enterprises. As Klein assembled the puzzle, she began to suspect that the syndicate's ambitions extended beyond mere theft. Their choice of targets, banks holding rare artifacts, private estates housing priceless heirlooms, hinted at a deeper motive. Could they be searching for something specific, or were they simply amassing wealth for reasons unknown? The plan unfolded on a stormy December night, as predicted by the decoded messages. Officers lay in wait outside the New Haven Jewelry Exchange, ready to pounce the moment the thieves made their move. As expected, the syndicate arrived promptly at midnight, disabling alarms and cameras with practiced ease. But this time, they walked straight into a trap. Gunfire erupted as police stormed the building, cornering the suspects inside. In the chaos, Victor Kane managed to escape through a hidden tunnel leading to the sewer system. Pursued by Klein and her team, he led them on a harrowing chase through the labyrinthine passages beneath the city. Eventually, cornered and exhausted, Kane surrendered, muttering cryptically about time running out. During interrogation, Kane revealed fragments of the syndicate's true purpose. Far from being mere thieves, they sought artifacts imbued with mystical properties, objects said to grant power over time itself. Their ultimate goal, according to Kane, was to unlock the secrets of immortality. Though skeptical, Klein couldn't ignore the eerie accuracy of Kane's predictions regarding future events, hinting at forces beyond conventional understanding. With Kane arrested and the syndicate dismantled, peace returned to New Haven. Yet Klein couldn't shake the feeling that some mysteries remained unresolved. Hidden caches of stolen goods were never recovered, and whispers of the Order of Eternal Time persisted, suggesting that their influence extended far beyond the reach of mortal law. In the months following the arrests, Klein revisited the case files, hoping to uncover additional clues. She discovered references to a mysterious figure known only as the Keeper, rumored to oversee the syndicate's operations from the shadows. Despite her best efforts, the Keeper remained elusive, leaving Klein to wonder if the true mastermind had escaped justice entirely. Though the Midnight Syndicate was no more, its legacy lingered in the minds of those who remembered the terror it inspired. For Detective Sarah Klein, the case served as a reminder that sometimes the most dangerous criminals are the ones who operate just beyond the edge of comprehension. Story 3. The Silent Witness. Rachel Monroe was a recluse whose haunting paintings earned her acclaim among art collectors worldwide. Living in a remote coastal town, she rarely ventured beyond her cliffside cottage, preferring solitude to society. Her work reflected an obsession with themes of loss, isolation, and the sea, a reflection, many believed, of her inner turmoil. On a foggy spring morning, fisherman Joe Callahan discovered Rachel's lifeless body floating near the pier. Initial reports suggested foul play, but evidence was scarce. No signs of struggle marred her pristine workspace, and her belongings appeared untouched. Detectives were baffled until they examined her journals, which hinted at paranoia and obsession. Rachel's writings described hearing whispers carried by the wind, urging her to paint the truth. She mentioned encounters with shadowy figures and referenced a lighthouse keeper who frequented her studio. Further investigation revealed that the keeper, Thomas Reed, had once worked as a private investigator specializing in cold cases. Thomas confessed to planting flowers on forgotten graves, believing Rachel's art held clues to unsolved murders. Together with detectives, he pieced together a chilling conspiracy involving powerful elites. Though Rachel's death went officially unsolved, her legacy lived on through her paintings, which continued to inspire hope and fear in equal measure. Through painstaking analysis, Thomas identified recurring motifs in Rachel's work that corresponded to real-life victims whose cases had gone cold. One painting depicted a stormy seascape with ghostly faces emerging from the waves. Another showed a shadowy figure atop a cliff, gazing down at a body washed ashore below. These eerie visuals became key pieces of evidence, reigniting interest in solving the murders. Detectives revisited old files, cross-referencing details from Rachel's art with missing persons reports. Slowly, a pattern emerged. All victims had ties to a secretive organization operating along the coast. Though unable to prosecute due to lack of physical evidence, authorities exposed the group's activities, forcing them to disband. Rachel's paintings now hang in galleries worldwide, serving as both memorials to the lost and warnings to those who seek to exploit others. To this day, visitors claim to hear faint whispers emanating from her canvases, as if Rachel herself is watching over the living, ensuring her voice and the voices of the forgotten are finally heard. To honor Rachel's memory, Thomas embarked on a personal mission to uncover the full extent of the conspiracy. He traveled to neighboring towns, interviewing families of the victims and collecting testimonies that painted a grim picture of corruption and abuse of power. Each story reinforced his belief that Rachel had been silenced because she knew too much. One particularly troubling account came from a woman named Mary Ellis, whose husband had disappeared years earlier. Mary claimed that her husband had stumbled upon incriminating documents linking local officials to illegal smuggling operations. Shortly afterward, he vanished without a trace. Mary believed Rachel's paintings included subtle references to her husband's fate, pointing to a secluded cove where smugglers often dock their boats. Guided by these clues, Thomas organized a search party and scoured the cove. Beneath layers of seaweed and debris, they uncovered remnants of clothing, personal effects, and even skeletal remains. Forensic analysis confirmed that some of the bones belonged to individuals listed as missing persons, While the discovery didn't bring closure to every case, it provided answers for several grieving families. In the end, Rachel Monroe's art transcended its original purpose, becoming a beacon of truth in a world clouded by lies. Though justice came too late for her, her legacy endured, inspiring others to seek accountability and remember those who might otherwise be forgotten. To this day, the cliffs of Seabrook remain a place of quiet reflection, where the wind carries whispers of a woman who dared to speak for the silent. Story 4. The Phantom of Ashwood Cemetery. In the sleepy village of Ashwood, nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, residents often spoke of strange occurrences in the local cemetery. For generations, tales circulated about ghostly apparitions wandering among the tombstones late at night. Some claimed to hear soft footsteps crunching against gravel paths, while others swore they saw shadowy figures tending to graves under the pale glow of the moonlight. Most dismissed these stories as mere superstition, whispers born of fear and imagination. But everything changed one fateful morning when groundskeeper Harold Finch stumbled upon something peculiar. Harold had worked at Ashwood Cemetery for over 20 years, maintaining its neat rows of headstones and manicured lawns. He prided himself on keeping the grounds immaculate, ensuring that visitors always felt welcomed and comforted. So when he noticed rows of freshly planted flowers adorning several neglected graves, his first reaction was confusion. Who would take the time to beautify graves that had clearly been forgotten by everyone else? More importantly, why would they do so in secret, under cover of darkness? The flowers themselves were exquisite, a mix of vibrant marigolds, delicate violets, and fragrant lavender, all arranged with care and precision. Each arrangement bore a small card bearing the name of the deceased, accompanied by heartfelt messages scrawled in elegant handwriting. "Rest peacefully," one read, "your memory lives on." Another simply stated, "Forgotten no more." As days turned into weeks, more graves were decorated, always during the dead of night. Curiosity turned to concern when authorities noticed that only certain graves received attention, those belonging to individuals who had died under suspicious circumstances. Detective Margaret Lane took interest in the phenomenon. Having spent decades solving complex cases, she couldn't resist the allure of unraveling this enigma. She began keeping watch over the cemetery, determined to uncover the truth. Armed with binoculars and a thermos of coffee, she stationed herself near the entrance, observing silently as hours ticked by. On her third night of surveillance, she finally caught sight of the midnight gardener. To her astonishment, well, it wasn't a ghostly apparition, but a frail elderly man named Thomas Reed. Dressed in worn gardening gloves and carrying a basket brimming with blooms, he moved methodically from grave to grave, planting flowers with tender care. When questioned, Thomas revealed that he had once worked as a private investigator and spent decades trying to bring justice to forgotten victims. Planting flowers was his way of honoring their memory and ensuring they weren't forgotten. Thomas explained that he had chosen Ashwood Cemetery because it housed many unsolved cases, some dating back centuries. He believed that by tending to these graves, he could offer solace to restless spirits and perhaps even inspire renewed interest in solving their murders. Though skeptics doubted his motives, many villagers came to admire his dedication. To them, Thomas became a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in death, no one should be left behind. As Detective Lane delved deeper into Thomas's story, she discovered that his actions were not merely altruistic. Thomas had been haunted by guilt for decades, stemming from a case he had failed to solve early in his career. In 1957, a young woman named Clara Bennett disappeared after visiting Ashwood Cemetery. Her body was never found, and the investigation quickly went cold. Thomas had been assigned to the case but made little progress, leaving him racked with regret. Clara's disappearance remained a mystery until Thomas began his nightly visits to the cemetery. While planting flowers, he uncovered fragments of evidence buried beneath the soil near Clara's grave. Among the items were scraps of fabric matching the dress Clara had been wearing the night she vanished, along with a rusted pocket watch engraved with her initials. These discoveries reignited interest in the case, prompting Lane to reopen the investigation. Lane interviewed surviving family members and reviewed old case files, piecing together a chilling narrative. Clara had been involved in a clandestine relationship with a married man named Edward Monroe, a prominent businessman in Ashwood. Their affair had sparked jealousy and resentment, leading Edward's wife, Evelyn, to hire a private investigator to follow Clara. The investigator reportedly confronted Clara in the cemetery, where an argument escalated into violence. Fearing exposure, Evelyn allegedly orchestrated a cover-up, ensuring that Clara's disappearance remained unsolved. Armed with new evidence, Lane confronted Evelyn Monroe, now an elderly widow living in seclusion. Initially dismissive, Evelyn eventually broke down under questioning, confessing to her role in Clara's death. She admitted to hiring the investigator, but claimed she had not intended for Clara to die. "I just wanted her gone," Evelyn sobbed. "But when I heard what happened, I panicked." With Evelyn's confession, the case was finally closed. Clara's remains were recovered from a shallow grave near the cemetery, allowing her family to lay her to rest properly. Thomas Reed continued his nightly vigils, finding solace in knowing that he had played a part in bringing justice to those who had been forgotten. To this day, the flowers he planted serve as a testament to his unwavering commitment to the dead, ensuring that their voices continue to be heard. Story 5. The Clockmaker's Secret. Nestled in the heart of London's bustling streets stood an unassuming clock shop run by Henry Aldridge, a meticulous craftsman renowned for his intricate timepieces. Customers admired not only his skill, but also his eccentric personality. Few knew much about Henry beyond his work, though rumors hinted at a troubled past. Everything changed one rainy afternoon when a fire broke out in the shop, destroying years of painstaking labor. Firefighters arrived swiftly, battling flames that licked hungrily at the wooden beams and glass display cases. Miraculously, no one was injured, but the damage was extensive. As smoke billowed into the sky, onlookers gathered, murmuring about the loss of such a beloved local institution. Among the rubble, however, lay a discovery that would unravel decades of secrets hidden within the walls of Henry's shop. Buried beneath layers of charred debris, firefighters unearthed a locked safe. Its steel exterior bore scorch marks, but remained intact, defying the inferno that had consumed everything else. Engineers pried it open cautiously, revealing stacks of yellowed documents detailing financial transactions, coded messages, and sketches of buildings across Europe. Each item told fragments of stories belonging to people long gone. But what truly stunned investigators was the realization that these weren't ordinary records. They belonged to a notorious smuggling ring operating throughout the early 20th century. Somehow, Henry Aldridge had become entangled in their web. Historians pieced together a narrative suggesting that he had used his clocks as clever hiding spots for stolen goods. Each mechanism concealed tiny compartments containing jewels, currency, and other contraband. One particularly ornate grandfather clock housed a false panel behind its pendulum, revealing a hollow space large enough to store gold bars. Another wall-mounted clock contained a secret drawer accessible only by twisting specific gears in sequence. Despite extensive questioning, Henry refused to divulge any details, claiming he acted under duress. According to him, the smugglers had threatened his family if he didn't comply with their demands. Over time, he claimed, he became complicit in their operations, using his expertise to design increasingly sophisticated hiding places. Yet even as he spoke, his voice trembled with regret, hinting at a lifetime burdened by guilt and fear. Among the recovered documents was a series of cryptic notes written in a cipher unlike anything investigators had seen before. The symbols resembled clock faces, with hands pointing to different numbers and letters. Detective Sarah Klein, tasked with deciphering the code, spent weeks poring over the notes, searching for patterns. Eventually, she cracked the cipher, revealing detailed instructions for smuggling routes and drop-off points. The decoded messages implicated several high-profile figures in London society, including politicians, aristocrats, and business magnates. It became clear that Henry's shop had served as a hub for laundering money and distributing illicit goods. His clocks, once celebrated for their craftsmanship, had doubled as Trojan horses, concealing secrets too dangerous to leave in plain sight. Klein's investigation led her to a sprawling estate on the outskirts of London, owned by Sir Reginald Whitmore, a baronet with ties to the smuggling ring. A search of the property uncovered a hidden vault filled with stolen artifacts, counterfeit currency, and incriminating correspondence. Sir Reginald was arrested, along with several accomplices, marking the end of an operation that had spanned decades. Though justice was served, Henry Aldridge remained a tragic figure. Haunted by his past, he withdrew from public life, spending his final years restoring damaged clocks donated by grateful townsfolk. Many viewed him as a victim of circumstance, forced into a life of crime by threats against his family. Others saw him as a mastermind who had exploited his talents for personal gain. Henry's legacy endured through his work, with collectors valuing his clocks not only for their beauty, but also for the stories they carried. To this day, antique dealers and historians alike marvel at the ingenuity of his designs, wondering how many secrets remain hidden within the ticking mechanisms. For Henry, the clocks represented both his greatest achievement and his deepest shame, a reminder that time, once lost, can never truly be reclaimed. Story 6, The Forgotten Vault. Beneath the bustling streets of Chicago lies a labyrinth of abandoned tunnels and forgotten structures, relics of a bygone era when the city was still finding its footing. Among these hidden treasures is an ancient bank vault discovered accidentally during construction work in 2005. Workers were astonished to find it intact, its massive steel doors sealed shut despite decades of neglect. Engineers pried it open cautiously, revealing rows of safety deposit boxes untouched for nearly a century. Inside, they unearthed a treasure trove of artifacts, faded photographs, handwritten letters, jewelry, and bundles of cash wrapped in brittle paper. Each item told fragments of stories belonging to people long gone. One box contained love letters exchanged between star-crossed lovers separated by war. Another held a child's baby teeth alongside a lock of hair tied with ribbon. Yet amidst these personal mementos lay something far darker. A series of detailed blueprints depicting the city's sewer system alongside notes referencing a planned heist. Historians trace the documents to a gang active during Prohibition, infamous for orchestrating daring robberies using underground passageways. Known as the Midnight Syndicate, they specialized in stealing contraband, alcohol, and laundering money through legitimate businesses. Records showed they disbanded abruptly after failing to execute their grand scheme, a plan to infiltrate a Federal Reserve facility via the sewers. But why leave behind such incriminating evidence? And how did it end up locked away in a forgotten vault? Detective James Harper was assigned to investigate the vault's contents, hoping to shed light on its origins. His research led him to a defunct bank whose owners had ties to organized crime. Rumors suggested that key members of the Midnight Syndicate used the vault not only to store loot, but also to hide incriminating documents implicating powerful figures within the city's elite circles. When the syndicate disbanded, perhaps fearing exposure or betrayal, they abandoned the vault rather than risk retrieving its contents. Further investigation revealed that the vault belonged to a defunct bank whose owners had ties to organized crime. Known as Silverlight Studios, it had been abandoned decades earlier under mysterious circumstances. Records showed that its owner, Victor Kane, had secretly photographed clients in compromising situations and blackmailed them. When business dried up, Victor allegedly turned to kidnapping wealthy individuals, holding them captive in hidden caves below the cliffs. Among the recovered items was a single photograph showing a group of men standing beside an ornate wooden chest. Their faces were obscured, save for one individual whose features bore a striking resemblance to a prominent politician still active today. Could this chest hold the key to unraveling a conspiracy spanning generations? Or does it contain something even more sinister, something so dangerous that it must remain buried forever? To this day, the vault remains a tantalizing enigma, preserving echoes of a bygone era. While efforts to identify the individuals in the photograph continue, the true nature of the chest and its contents remains unknown. Some speculate it holds priceless artifacts stolen from museums. Others whisper of cursed objects capable of unleashing chaos upon the world. Whatever lies inside, one thing is clear. The forgotten vault guards its secrets well, waiting patiently for someone brave enough or foolish enough to unlock its mysteries. Story 7, The Shadow Collector. In the coastal town of Greystone, nestled between jagged cliffs and a shimmering ocean, residents whispered about the Shadow Collector, a figure rumored to roam the cliffs at dusk. According to legend, anyone unlucky enough to encounter him would vanish without a trace. Skeptics dismissed the tale as folklore, a product of overactive imaginations fueled by the eerie beauty of Greystone's jagged coastline. But all doubt was cast aside one fateful evening in 1989 when three teenagers disappeared after venturing too close to the edge. The trio, siblings Emma and Jack Carter, along with their friend Lily Monroe, had gone to the cliffs for a bonfire party, ignoring warnings from locals to stay away after dark. Witnesses reported seeing them laughing and dancing near the precipice, silhouetted against the setting sun. Hours later, search parties scoured the area, but found nothing except a single shoe belonging to Lily. Days later, a fourth youth claimed to have seen a dark silhouette lurking near the site. Terrified, he ran home and refused to speak of it again. Police launched an exhaustive investigation, interviewing locals and reviewing old cases. Patterns began to emerge. All victims shared a connection to a defunct photography studio perched precariously above the cliffs. Known as Silverlight Studios, it had been abandoned decades earlier under mysterious circumstances. Records showed that its owner, Victor Kane, had secretly photographed clients in compromising situations and blackmailed them. When business dried up, Victor allegedly turned to kidnapping wealthy individuals, holding them captive in hidden caves below the cliffs. But as detectives dug deeper, they uncovered something far stranger. Victor wasn't just a criminal mastermind, he was obsessed with light and shadow. His journals, discovered in the crumbling remains of the studio, detailed experiments designed to capture the essence of darkness. He believed shadows held secrets, fragments of souls trapped between worlds, and that by collecting them, he could unlock immortality. One chilling entry described how he used mirrors and camera lenses to trap shadows, storing them in glass jars lined with silver foil. Locals recalled hearing strange noises emanating from the studio late at night, like whispers carried on the wind. Detective Sarah Klein took charge of the case, determined to uncover the truth behind the disappearances. Her investigation led her to explore the caves beneath the cliffs, where she discovered makeshift cells where victims were once held. In one chamber, she found rows of dusty jars labeled with names and dates. Some contained faint outlines resembling human figures, writhing silently within their confines. Others were empty, suggesting that whatever force Victor had unleashed may have escaped his grasp. Klein also interviewed descendants of Victor Kane, piecing together fragments of his life. She learned that Victor had been a recluse, consumed by his obsession with capturing shadows. His family claimed he had become increasingly paranoid, convinced that someone or something was watching him. Shortly before his death in 1965, Victor had burned most of his research, leaving only cryptic notes behind. One surviving document mentioned a ritual designed to bind the shadows, though its purpose remained unclear. As Klein delved deeper, she uncovered connections between Victor's experiments and ancient myths about shadow beings capable of possessing humans. According to legend, these entities fed on fear and despair, growing stronger with each victim they claimed. Could Victor have inadvertently summoned such a creature, or had he sought to harness its power for himself? The breakthrough came when Klein examined the jars containing trapped shadows. Using a magnifying glass, she noticed faint symbols etched onto the glass, runes associated with protective magic. Consulting with experts in folklore, she learned that the runes were meant to contain malevolent spirits. It seemed Victor had succeeded in trapping the entity, at least temporarily, but had failed to destroy it. Klein organized a team to seal off the caves permanently, hoping to prevent further incidents. As they worked, eerie phenomena plagued the site. Tools moved on their own, whispers echoed through the tunnels, and cold spots lingered despite the heat. On the final day, Klein herself encountered the shadow collector, a tall, gaunt figure wrapped in tattered robes, his face obscured by a veil of swirling shadows. Though terrified, she stood her ground, reciting an incantation provided by the folklore expert. The entity let out a piercing shriek before vanishing into thin air. Though the caves were sealed, Klein couldn't shake the feeling that the shadow collector still lingered, waiting for another opportunity to strike. To this day, the cliffs of Greystone remain a place of quiet dread, where visitors report hearing disembodied voices and seeing fleeting glimpses of shadowy figures. Whether these are remnants of Victor's legacy or signs of something far older and more malevolent is anyone's guess. Story 8, The Last Broadcast. In the winter of 1992, radio host Daniel Harper hosted a late-night program called Voices in the Dark. Known for his soothing voice and penchant for discussing unsolved mysteries, Daniel attracted loyal listeners eager for spine-tingling tales. Each episode delved into topics ranging from haunted houses to cryptids, blending fact with fiction in a way that kept audiences both entertained and unsettled. But one snowy evening, his show took a sinister turn, one that would leave listeners questioning the boundaries between reality and the supernatural. Midway through a segment about urban legends, static interrupted the transmission. When sound returned moments later, Daniel sounded panicked, speaking rapidly about shadowy figures approaching the studio. "They're here," he whispered hoarsely, his usual calm demeanor replaced by sheer terror. "I can see them. They're right outside the door." Listeners called the station frantically, but operators couldn't reach Daniel. Security footage showed him sitting calmly at his desk until suddenly slumping forward, microphone dangling silently. Emergency responders arrived to find the room empty, save for faint smudges resembling handprints on the walls. No sign of forced entry or exit suggested how Daniel, or whatever confronted him, had left. The incident sparked widespread speculation. Some theorized Daniel staged the event as a publicity stunt. Others believed he encountered something beyond human comprehension. Regardless, Voices in the Dark ceased broadcasting permanently. Years later, snippets of that final episode resurfaced online, reigniting interest in the case. Audio analysts detected strange anomalies in the recording. Faint whispers layered beneath Daniel's voice, rhythmic tapping that matched no known instrument, and what sounded like distant footsteps echoing in the background. Detective James Harper was assigned to investigate Daniel's disappearance, intrigued by the bizarre circumstances surrounding the case. His first clue came from a listener who claimed to recognize one of the whispered voices in the recording. Upon closer analysis, the voice belonged to a woman named Clara Bennett, who had vanished decades earlier under mysterious circumstances. Further research revealed that Clara had been a frequent caller to Voices in the Dark, often sharing chilling accounts of paranormal encounters. Harper also discovered that Daniel had been researching curses and rituals for months leading up to his disappearance. Among his notes was a reference to the veil, a boundary between worlds said to weaken during certain celestial events. The night of Daniel's last broadcast coincided with a rare lunar eclipse, lending credence to the theory that he may have inadvertently opened a portal to another realm. To gather more evidence, Harper visited the abandoned studio where Voices in the Dark aired. The building exuded an oppressive atmosphere, with flickering lights and unexplained cold spots. In the control room, he found a dusty notebook filled with cryptic symbols and instructions for conducting a ritual. One page bore a warning: "Do not attempt unless prepared to face the consequences." Determined to uncover the truth, Harper decided to recreate the ritual using Daniel's notes. With the help of a folklore expert, he gathered the necessary materials and performed the ceremony during another lunar eclipse. As the ritual progressed, the air grew heavy and ghostly apparitions materialized around him. Among them was Daniel, pale and gaunt, his eyes hollow with despair. He warned Harper to stop, claiming that crossing the veil came at a terrible cost. Ignoring the warning, Harper pressed on, desperate to bring Daniel back. Suddenly, the room erupted in chaos as shadowy figures surged forward, reaching for him. In a flash of blinding light, the apparitions vanished, leaving Harper alone in the studio. Though shaken, he emerged unharmed, only to discover that Daniel's voice now echoed faintly in recordings made afterward, pleading for release. To this day, Harper wrestles with guilt over meddling with forces he barely understands. The studio remains sealed, its halls haunted by whispers of those who dared cross the veil. Whether Daniel's soul will ever find peace, or if Harper has doomed himself to a similar fate, remains unknown. Story 9, The Drowned Bride. On the shores of Lake Elderglow, nestled between mist-shrouded mountains, lies a small chapel abandoned for nearly 2 centuries. Its crumbling walls and shattered stained glass windows tell the story of a love lost to time, and perhaps something darker. Locals speak in hushed tones of the drowned bride, a spectral figure said to haunt the lake, her flowing white gown perpetually soaked and her eyes filled with sorrow. The tale begins in 1792 when a wealthy merchant named Thomas Alden arranged a marriage between his daughter Eleanor and a nobleman from a neighboring province. Though Eleanor loved another, a humble blacksmith named William, she obeyed her father's wishes, believing duty outweighed desire. On the eve of her wedding, she visited the chapel to pray for guidance. Witnesses claimed to see her walking toward the lake shortly afterward, clutching a bouquet of wilted flowers. She was never seen again. Search parties dragged the lake for days but found no body. Instead, they uncovered a series of letters hidden beneath the chapel floorboards. Written by Eleanor, they revealed her anguish at being forced into marriage and hinted at a pact made with the lake itself. "If my heart cannot belong to him," she wrote, "then let it belong to none." Years passed and stories of the drowned bride spread. Fishermen reported seeing a pale figure gliding across the water, her hair trailing behind her like seaweed. Boats passing too close to the center of the lake would inexplicably capsize, leaving survivors shaken and unwilling to speak of what they saw. Some claim the bride sought revenge for her stolen happiness. Others believe she guarded a secret buried deep beneath the waves. In 1985, divers exploring the lake discovered a wooden chest encrusted with algae and barnacles. Inside, they found jewelry, letters, and a locket containing portraits of Eleanor and William. Among the items was a journal written by Thomas Alden, detailing his guilt over forcing the union and his belief that the lake had claimed Eleanor as punishment. Since then, sightings of the drowned bride have grown less frequent, though locals insist she still watches over the waters, waiting for someone to reunite her with the man she loved. Detective Margaret Lane took an interest in the case, drawn by the tragic romance at its core. Her investigation led her to interview descendants of both Eleanor and William, uncovering a heartbreaking narrative of forbidden love and betrayal. She learned that William had attempted to rescue Eleanor from the lake, diving repeatedly until exhaustion claimed his life. Their bodies were never recovered, fueling rumors that they had become eternal guardians of the lake. Lane also explored the possibility that Eleanor's disappearance was linked to a curse placed on the Alden family generations earlier. According to legend, a scorned witch had vowed to claim the soul of every Alden bride, ensuring that their marriages would end in tragedy. Could Eleanor's fate have been preordained, a sacrifice demanded by vengeful spirits? To honor Eleanor and William's memory, Lane organized a memorial service at the lake, inviting villagers to share their stories of love and loss. As candles floated on the water and mourners sang hymns, a sense of peace settled over the area. Some claimed to see a pair of figures standing hand in hand on the shore, their faces serene and content. Others swore the water shimmered with an otherworldly glow, as if the lake itself was offering forgiveness. Though the mystery of the drowned bride remains unsolved, her legend serves as a reminder of the enduring power of love, even in death. To this day, visitors leave offerings of flowers and ribbons at the edge of the lake, hoping to appease the restless spirits and ensure safe passage for future travelers. For those who dare to listen, the whispers of the past continue to echo across the waters, carrying messages of hope, sorrow, and redemption. Story 10. The Whispering Woods. Deep within the rolling hills of northern England lies a dense forest known as Blackthorn Grove. Locals avoid it after sunset, claiming that the woods come alive with whispers, soft murmurs carried on the wind that seem to call out to wanderers. Some say the voices belong to those who have vanished within its shadowy depths. Others believe they are echoes of an ancient curse placed upon the land centuries ago. The legend gained traction in 1923 when a group of university students ventured into the grove to investigate reports of strange lights flickering among the trees. Armed with notebooks and cameras, they set up camp near an old stone circle rumored to be a meeting place for druids. That night, their journals recorded chilling accounts of disembodied voices urging them to follow the path. By morning, 3 of the students were gone, leaving behind only cryptic notes scrawled in shaky handwriting. "They know we're here." Search parties combed the woods for weeks, but found no trace of the missing students. The sole survivor, a young woman named Margaret Lane, was discovered wandering aimlessly along the edge of the forest, her face pale and expression vacant. She refused to speak about what happened, except to warn others never to enter the grove again. Her silence fueled speculation about what or who had taken her companions. Detective Harold Finch took charge of the investigation. determined to uncover the truth behind the disappearances. His first clue came from examining the students' journals, which described hearing voices that grew louder and more insistent as they ventured deeper into the woods. One entry mentioned seeing faint figures moving between the trees, while another noted the sudden appearance of glowing orbs that seemed to guide them off the trail. Finch also consulted local historians who revealed that Blackthorn Grove had been sacred ground for ancient tribes. According to legend, the Druids performed rituals to appease spirits dwelling in the forest, offering sacrifices to ensure safe passage. When Christianity spread through the region, the grove was abandoned and its secrets forgotten until now. Further research uncovered references to a curse placed on the land by a scorned druidess named Morgana. Betrayed by her lover and exiled from the tribe, she vowed to claim the souls of anyone who dared trespass in her domain. Over the centuries, villagers reported hearing her voice, whispering warnings to those who strayed too close to the grove. To test the legends, Finch organized a team to explore the forest during daylight hours. As they approached the stone circle, eerie phenomena began to occur. Compasses spun wildly, equipment malfunctioned, and faint whispers echoed through the trees. In the center of the circle, they discovered a shallow grave containing skeletal remains wrapped in tattered cloth. Among the artifacts buried with the body was a journal written in Latin, detailing a ritual designed to bind malevolent spirits. With the help of a linguist, Finch translated the text, learning that the druidess Morgana had indeed cursed the grove, trapping her spirit within its boundaries. To break the curse, the ritual required a descendant of the original tribe to perform a counter-ritual at midnight during a full moon. Finch tracked down a woman named Evelyn Monroe, whose family traced their lineage back to the Druids. Though skeptical, Evelyn agreed to participate, hoping to end the cycle of disappearances. On the designated night, she recited the incantation while holding a ceremonial dagger over the grave. As the clock struck midnight, a piercing scream echoed through the woods, followed by an eerie silence. Though the grove remains shrouded in mystery, sightings of ghostly figures and glowing orbs have diminished significantly. For those brave enough to visit, the whispers still linger, a reminder of the fragile boundary between the living and the dead. Story 11, The Forgotten Lighthouse. Perched on a rocky outcrop at the edge of the world, the lighthouse at Devil's Cove has stood sentinel for over a century. Once a beacon guiding sailors safely through treacherous waters, it now sits abandoned, its lantern dark and its walls crumbling with age. But despite its desolation, the lighthouse refuses to fade from memory, not because of its history, but because of the strange occurrences that plague those who dare approach it. Built in 1887, the lighthouse was manned by a solitary keeper named Elias Grayson, a reclusive man who rarely interacted with the outside world. For decades, he maintained the light faithfully, ensuring ships navigated safely past the jagged reefs below. Then, one stormy night in 1924, the light went out. A rescue crew dispatched to investigate found the lighthouse deserted, with no sign of Elias. His logbook lay open on the desk, its final entry dated the previous evening. "The shadows move when I'm not looking." Rumors swirled about Elias's fate. Some said he had succumbed to madness, driven insane by isolation and the relentless howling of the wind. Others whispered of supernatural forces lurking in the cove, preying on anyone foolish enough to stay too long. Over time, the lighthouse fell into disrepair, becoming little more than a local legend told to frighten children. In 2005, a team of paranormal investigators revisited Devil's Cove, equipped with modern technology designed to detect anomalies. Their equipment picked up unusual electromagnetic fluctuations and audio recordings filled with faint whispers repeating phrases like, "Come closer," and "You shouldn't be here." One investigator claimed to see shadowy figures darting between the trees, though his colleagues saw nothing. When reviewing the footage later, they noticed something unsettling. A figure standing just behind the camera operator, partially obscured by foliage, watching silently. Determined to uncover the truth, Detective Sarah Klein joined the investigation, poring over Elias's logbook and interviewing descendants of the original builders. She learned that the lighthouse had been constructed on land once inhabited by a Native American tribe who believed the cove was a gateway to the spirit world. According to legend, the tribe performed rituals to seal the gateway, warning that disturbing the site would unleash unspeakable horrors. Klein also discovered that Elias had been fascinated by the occult, filling his journals with diagrams of pentagrams and instructions for summoning spirits. One entry described a vision of shadowy figures emerging from the sea, their eyes glowing with malevolent intent. Could Elias have inadvertently opened the gateway, dooming himself and others to eternal torment? To prevent further incidents, Klein organized a team to perform a ritual designed to seal the gateway permanently. Using information gleaned from Elias's journals and consultations with tribal elders, they gathered materials and performed the ceremony during a lunar eclipse. As they chanted the incantation, the air grew heavy and ghostly apparitions materialized around them. Among them was Elias, his face twisted in anguish, pleading for release. Ignoring his cries, the team completed the ritual, causing the apparitions to vanish in a flash of blinding light. Though the immediate threat was neutralized, Klein couldn't shake the feeling that the gateway remained unstable, waiting for another opportunity to reopen. To this day, the lighthouse stands as a monument to tragedy and hubris, its forgotten halls echoing with the whispers of those who dare delve too deeply into its mysteries. Story 12, The Silent Witness. Rachel Monroe was a recluse whose haunting paintings earned her acclaim among art collectors worldwide. Living in a remote coastal town, she rarely ventured beyond her cliffside cottage, preferring solitude to society. Her work reflected an obsession with themes of loss, isolation, and the sea, a reflection, many believed, of her inner turmoil. On a foggy spring morning, fisherman Joe Callahan discovered Rachel's lifeless body floating near the pier. Initial reports suggested foul play, but evidence was scarce. No signs of struggle marred her pristine workspace, and her belongings appeared untouched. Detectives were baffled until they examined her journals, which hinted at paranoia and obsession. Rachel's writings described hearing whispers carried by the wind, urging her to paint the truth. She mentioned encounters with shadowy figures and referenced a lighthouse keeper who frequented her studio. Further investigation revealed that the keeper, Thomas Reed, had once worked as a private investigator, specializing in cold cases. Thomas confessed to planting flowers on forgotten graves, believing Rachel's art held clues to unsolved murders. Together with detectives, he pieced together a chilling conspiracy involving powerful elites. Though Rachel's death went officially unsolved, her legacy lived on through her paintings, which continued to inspire hope and fear in equal measure. Through painstaking analysis, Thomas identified recurring motifs in Rachel's work that corresponded to real-life victims whose cases had gone cold. One painting depicted a stormy seascape with ghostly faces emerging from the waves. Another showed a shadowy figure atop a cliff, gazing down at a body washed ashore below. These eerie visuals became key pieces of evidence, reigniting interest in solving the murders. Detectives revisited old files, cross-referencing details from Rachel's art with missing persons reports. Slowly, a pattern emerged. All victims had ties to a secretive organization operating along the coast. Though unable to prosecute due to lack of physical evidence, authorities exposed the group's activities, forcing them to disband. Rachel's paintings now hang in galleries worldwide, serving as both memorials to the lost and warnings to those who seek to exploit others. To this day, visitors claim to hear faint whispers emanating from her canvases, as if Rachel herself is watching over the living, ensuring her voice and the voices of the forgotten are finally heard. To honor Rachel's memory, Thomas embarked on a personal mission to uncover the full extent of the conspiracy. He traveled to neighboring towns, interviewing families of the victims and collecting testimonies that painted a grim picture of corruption and abuse of power. Each story reinforced his belief that Rachel had been silenced because she knew too much. One particularly troubling account came from a woman named Mary Ellis, whose husband had disappeared years earlier. Mary claimed that her husband had stumbled upon incriminating documents linking local officials to illegal smuggling operations. Shortly afterward, he vanished without a trace. Mary believed Rachel's paintings included subtle references to her husband's fate, pointing to a secluded cove where smugglers often docked their boats. Guided by these clues, Thomas organized a search party and scoured the cove. Beneath layers of seaweed and debris, they uncovered remnants of clothing, personal effects, and even skeletal remains. Forensic analysis confirmed that some of the bones belonged to individuals listed as missing persons. While the discovery didn't bring closure to every case, it provided answers for several grieving families. In the end, Rachel Monroe's art transcended its original purpose, becoming a beacon of truth in a world clouded by lies. Though justice came too late for her, her legacy endured, inspiring others to seek accountability and remember those who might otherwise be forgotten. To this day, the cliffs of Seabrook remain a place of quiet reflection, where the wind carries whispers of a woman who dared to speak for the silent. As the final page closes and the fog gently lifts from these quiet corners of the world, may your mind be at peace, wrapped in the calm hush of these mysteries. Thank you for listening, dear dreamer. Sleep well. The stories will wait for you.